This is a demonstration of the connector between edX and the Harvard WorldMap technology. edX provides a wide variety of utilities for creating courseware, but one of the things that it was missing was a facility for integrating mapping and map-based data. One of the premier courses at HarvardX is ChinaX, which makes heavy use of geo information, historical information, cultural information, geographic information. The course includes a map that at various times is used to describe population data, physical data such as the course of the Yangtze River over time as it changed course, as well as trade routes and population shifts across history. We wanted to integrate that into the edX platform. What we did was we created a single module called the WorldMap module, the WorldMap unit. And it has really 3 or 4 parts, but the main part, of course, is the map. And the map is a live map, much like Google Maps. And it is a portal onto the actual WorldMap servers at Harvard. The top area is some prose. In this case, we just took some prose out of Wikipedia. And the right here are some questions that need to be answered geographically. The prose can refer to things on the map. So, for instance, up here we have a link that describes Back Bay. And when you click on the link, it highlights the region that is called Back Bay and scrolls it into place in the view. So here we go. At this point, the student can scroll around, zoom, whatever he wants. Each of the links is connected with the map and can show either a position on the map, a polyline, just a crayon drawing, basically, or potentially a region, a polygon. And then this way you can integrate your prose with the map. The questions can be free-form. They're basically HTML text. They can include links to the map, as you can see on the 3rd question down the list there. One of the other features is the layer manager, which is being shown here. This allows the courseware creator to organize layers in any way they want in a hierarchy. The layers can have any name they wish in any language, any character set they wish. And the layers can be turned on and off by checking the checkboxes. In addition, you see the legends appear on the right based on each layer. The folders are hierarchical, and the little checkbox is really a tri-state checkbox. If you check it, then everything inside gets checked. If you uncheck stuff inside, the checkbox becomes mixed. And if you uncheck everything, then everything turns off. So let's look under the covers. This is how the courseware creator actually puts this all together. This is the editor portion. On the left is the HTML of the prose. It has a nice little HTML editor that does nice indenting and coloring of the various HTML elements. And on the right is to find all the referenced geometry. This is the geodata that gets highlighted on the screen. each of the referenced geometry can be highlighted by activating a link in the HTML prose on the left. So you can see there Backbase 7 is the object of that link, and it is displayed for 5,000 milliseconds. The -1 there, -2, is the zoom, the relative zoom. So if you put 0 there, it would just fill the screen. If you put -1, then it will be a little bit closer than the normal view. +1 would give you a little bit further away. The reference geometry can be either a polygon, as shown there, or it can be a polyline, just like a crayon drawing, and it can be a point, just a marker on the map to show a location. Okay, so now we have to ask the student some questions and get his answers, and then check to see whether the answers were correct. So the questions are on the Questions tab, and the user, the course creator, can actually write in any question he wants, and this is just HTML, so it can be pretty much arbitrarily complex, and can even include links to highlight things on the map. The questions can be reordered by dragging the questions. The question itself has a lot of parts. The HTML, of course, for the actual text. A unique identifier, the color of the tool that gets used. How many times the student can get the question wrong before a hint is displayed, and how long that hint is put up for review. The type of geometry that the user has to draw in response to the question is displayed there. It can either be a point, a polygon, or a polyline. But that response is then judged based on a set of constraints. Each constraint decides whether or not that part of the question has been answered correctly. So for instance, here we're asking whether or not the polygon entered by the user is drawn outside a particular region with a particular buffer around it. And the various constraints can be one of 4 types at the present time: matches, includes, excludes, or inside of. And the geometry that it's compared against can be one of the 3 types of geometry. The Mapping tab has all of the physical elements of the map defined, like the URL on the WorldMap server for the base map, the base layer that the map should use, and that's the internal ID of the base layer, as well as a tree control that shows all of the different layers that the user can, the student can turn on and off with the internal ID as well as the visible ID. And the visible name can have any character set. The physical location of the map, when it shows on the screen for the student the first time, is defined here, as well as the zoom level. And then finally, the sticky zoom defines whether or not, when the student comes back to that unit, whether the map is the way it was when he left the unit, or whether or not it has been reset. Now, one of the trickier elements is we provide a nice facility for doing animation, a sort of a crude animation using a slider. So any of the layers can have a parameter defined for that layer. It can be any number. but the slider can vary the value of that number based on the position on the slider. The slider can be on the left, right, top, or bottom, and you can actually have multiple sliders on either side. The begin value, the end value of the slider, and the increment, and then a little text that gives a little help text as to what that slider is all about. Each layer defines a number of parameters, and those parameters can either be a single value parameter or it can be a range parameter. So when the slider is at a particular value, if for a particular variable name, it determines whether or not that layer is on or off. So in this case, we have a layer who has a parameter called census year, and that's between two values. You can create a new parameter and give it its own value. And now, if any of the sliders are set at a position where my parameter is that particular value, that layer will show up, or if census year is within the range of that layer, it will show up. So here's a demonstration. It's a very crude demonstration. It's just basically animating the layers that happen to exist on this map, so it's not going to be all that pretty, but you can use this to animate, for instance, the march of General Grant during the Civil War and the movement of the troops, or the change in population centers as time moves on. And finally, we have always the backdoor that lets you get at other features that we don't generally show people. It's the little debug checkbox, and the only real utility it has at this point is that it shows the internal layer IDs so that the course creator can get at the actual open layers ID that they need to use as part of creating the interface. But we do have other things in the offing. The other side of it, it puts two tabs on the display, which lets you see the inner guts of the data structure that is driving this whole thing. And someday in the future, we'll give you the ability to cut and paste little snippets of this between different WorldMap connectors, so that you don't have to necessarily recreate everything from scratch for each connector. So that concludes the demonstration of the WorldMap connector to edX. Thank you very much for taking a look.